All right, we are recording. So welcome guys to the, I guess probably, I don't know what round we're in, third or fourth um, episode of iStation training now. So welcome and thank you guys for joining us again. Hopefully things are going smoothly. We have a shorter presentation as far as content goes, not quite as much as we've probably had in the past, which will give us hopefully some extra time if there's any questions or anything like that. But today we're going to be talking about goals, growth, and a little bit of instruction from a reporting standpoint. I'll do a real quick review of the instruction as well. It's probably been some time since even before Christmas that we really talked about how the instruction works and things like that. So we'll start off with talking about tracking growth and kind of seeing how your students are growing. Talk about using our goals page to see what their goals are, and then set some of those goals going forward for your students for the rest of the year as well. So we'll just kind of go through this as we get there. So we'll spend most of our time in the website today. When we talk a little bit about like the instruction refresher, we'll go out to a PowerPoint just for a couple of pieces, a couple of slides there. We'll be in the website as much as we can today. So if you're able to have me on one device or screen and your iStation account on another, that would be ideal. So I'm going to spend some time in a couple of different demo classrooms today, kind of depending on what we're going to look at with goals or growth. So we'll start off talking about using the goals page. So I'm going to go into a third grade class. Let me just get that set. All right, so once you're logged in, of course, you'll just go into your classroom. So we have a goals page that will set baseline goals for all of your students based on that initial assessment. And it's designed as a baseline so that you guys as the teachers who know your kids far better than us can go in and adjust those goals as needed for those students that may be able to achieve more than what the goals represent, who may start outperforming those goals and they need to be adjusted along the way, anything like that. So we will talk about that today as well. So when you go into your classroom over here to the left in this, I always call them the classroom management links. You'll see a link for the goals page right here. So we'll click here. And that's going to drop you into the goals page for your class. So we have reading. You can select your product here, iStation Reading, Espanol, for either of those that you might be using on your campus. And then you'll just have all of your students listed out below, and you'll see their bar graph for their goals over there to the right. Now, this is going to be based on the overall score, okay? So you're not going to see it for like vocabulary or any of the individual subtests. Right now, it is just for their overall score. So as you scroll down, you can kind of get a real quick view of how students are meeting their goals. The gray bars that you see represent the students' actual scores, and then the blue bars that you see represent the goals that were either set by default or have been edited by the teacher. So we're going to look at Andy right here because he's a student that started off a little bit lower at the beginning of the year. We can see here with his gray bar in October. So we set goals based on that first assessment. And then as we went along, he started outperforming his goals quite a bit, okay? So when that happens, then I want to adjust goals because if you're now working at a different level, we need to set goals based on the level you're currently working at. So to do that, I would actually click on the bar graph. Don't click on the name, but actually click on the bar graph. That takes you into that individual student's goals, okay? So now you're going to be able to look at the overall scores. And again, this gray bar is going to represent the child's actual score for the month. The blue bars are going to represent the goals that we set for the student. So he started off with a 228. We set the goals based on that score. And those goals that we set, remember I said it's a baseline, those will basically keep that child more or less at the same percentile throughout the year, okay? So very much a baseline. Remember, a student maintaining percentile for the school year is showing growth, so it is going to be growth because you have to grow to maintain your rank amongst your peers who are also growing. So we give you that baseline. right? So if you're in the 85th percentile, 90th percentile, a really high percentile, maintaining that percentile is not a terrible goal, right? Because you're still growing. I still want you to grow, but I'm not going to lose a lot of sleep if you just maintain that really high percentile. However, when we get down here into these lower scores with lower percentiles, 20th percentile, 40th percentile, I need you to grow faster than just maintaining your percentile. Okay. So now I can go in and start adjusting these goals to either match what the student's new performance level is, or to say, okay, I need you to grow more. So we're going to set a higher goal for you and we're going to try to get you to that higher goal. So down here at the bottom of the chart, you will see this Edit Student Goals button. We can click here. On this first page, you can type new scores in as you go across down here. There's little gray bars up here that you can drag up and down. Those are different ways to set those goals. I generally ignore that piece because I guess you could kind of set it as far as height goes, but you're still kind of guessing in a way. I like to do a little bit more precise editing than that. So instead of using either of those two options, I go up here to the top where you see the Goals Assistant button. So I click there. Now I can see different options that I have for kind of quick setting goals, if you will, right? This will adjust all of the goals, that was hard to say for me, all of the goals going forward in one kind of fell swoop, right? So I'm a big proponent of percentile rank. I think I've said that probably on every call that we've been on. I like to use it for seeing how they're doing, for creating my small groups, and even for tracking that growth, right? So I like to use specific percentile rank. So I'm going to X out of this real quick and just point one thing out. So you can see this student has taken 1, 2, 3, 4 assessments, and this was their most recent assessment right here, okay? And that's going to come into play right here. So I've clicked into my Goals Assistant, and I'm going to click into specific percentile rank. I love percentile rank. So now the Goals Assistant says students should reach and maintain a percentile rank of 54th percentile by May. Whatever is already populated in here, that is the percentile the student was on their most recent assessment. Okay, so whatever is already there, that is their most current percentile rank based on their most current assessment. So this student is in the 54th percentile right now as of their January assessment. So going forward, I want you, let's say, okay, instead of 54th percentile, I know this student really well. They will respond to having a pretty high goal, and we're going to work really hard. So maybe we're going to say instead of 54th percentile, I want to shoot for the 64th percentile by May. Okay. And then when are we going to start this? We're going to start this next month, right? So now I can calculate and save those goals. And now, so we're in February, so now it starts in March. I can see my goals have now adjusted to move that child up to that higher percentile. Notice how these blue bars going forward are much taller now, and they're even taller than their most recent score, okay? So I can do that for all of my students. And right now you have to do that student by student, just like the process we went through right here, which I think is good, right? Because all of your students are different. This child may respond to that. Another child, may not be able to go that high of a percentile growth, or they may be able to grow even more, right? It just depends on what you know about your students. I could have even said, I think we could have even said, starting this month, right? And calculate and save goals. And it would have jumped their February up as well. Not sure why that kind of got weird all of a sudden. But we could have made it this month as well. So I'm going to go back to what do we do? Yep, let's go back to the way that was. So 64th, we'll start next month, and then we'll calculate and save goals. That got really weird, didn't it? Am I the only one that notices that? Like these all went down now?
No, I noticed that too. I'm not
From
sure.
what it was earlier? Like that's pretty strange.
It did.
Let me see.
It dropped. I'm not sure why.
I don't know why I did that. Let's go to 65th percentile. Maybe we just had a weird, there we go. That's what it looked like earlier. Okay.
Yes.
So now all of my goals have adjusted to get them to that 64th percentile or now 65th percentile by the end of the year. That was a weird little bug. I'll have to ask about that.
Mhm.
So the neat thing is when your students are logged into PowerPath, and we'll take a look at this in just a second as well. When your students are logged into PowerPath, they are able to see all of these goals that we have on the goals page right here, okay? So let me go ahead and log in. Let's see if I can log in as Andy. So I'll pull up PowerPath here. And Andy's a demo student, so don't worry, we're not seeing any data that we shouldn't see. So let me go into Andy's page and get his username and password. Because he should be PowerPath as well. Yes. So now I hope he hasn't taken an assessment. Oh, okay. Ugh. So when they go up here, they'll be able to go into, when they log in, they can go into their avatar and they can see reading scores over here. Right now, this month, they have to have finished their assessment to be able to see that. Starting in March, they'll be able to go into that before they took their assessment. So let me show you. I was hoping he would work because he had really nice goals. I liked how his goals were set up. Sorry, let me go into my class and use the student that I just used today. Her goals aren't quite as pretty, but it will still show you what I mean. So let's go. So now when your students log in, they would go up here to their little avatar and then go down here to reading scores, and they'll be able to see here is their score and there is the goal for the next month. And then they can click on the little three dots and go into goals right here, and they can see their goals over a period of time, right? And so these goals will match whatever your goals page says, right? So if you don't change anything, it'll just have those default goals like we had. And if we go in and change things like we did with Kevin, I think that was his name, then they will change on this screen as well. So your students will always be able to see how they are scoring against any goals that you guys set together, okay? Does that sound like a pretty good feature for you guys to have? I'm just gonna change up my thing. If you think that's good, can you guys give me a thumbs up? You can either give me the digital thumbs up. I think there's a cool little digital thumbs up, or you can give me a real one if with your camera on. I know some people don't like their cameras on, so cool. So I think that's really neat. So let me go back into, let's go back into Kevin, or Andy, I guess was his name. Let's go back into his goals. So these are really nice to be able to like have a really quick conversation with that student, right? Maybe like a 2-minute conversation with each of your students after they take their assessment at some point during the month. And you can pull this up for the student and talk about, how you're approaching your goals, right? So I know if I had a 246, I know I need at least, 245 or higher really in February. From February to March, I need a 249, right? So when we scored, did we grow but not meet our goal? Or did we surpass our goal? What was the thing, right? And so now with students being able to use or to track their own data, that's really going to help them just stay motivated to do better, right? Like we all know that we want our kids, even the younger kids, they understand that kind of up into the right growth is good, right? Even if they can't like verbalize it, like kindergarten kids, like they can't tell you what it is, but they know if it's going up into the right, they know that's good. They know if my bars are getting taller, they know that's good. So this is just one of those really neat things I think that you can do with your students real quickly each month, kind of talk about their goals. Did we meet our goals? Did we surpass our goals? Things like that. So I want to give you a couple minutes just to kind of look at your goals page and spend some time. You can edit some goals. You can just take a look at individual students and see what's going on, or just get comfortable getting to this page. So again, when you go to, let me go to his classroom. So when you go up here to your classroom tab, you click into your classroom. Over here to the left, that's where you're going to see that link for goals. So we can click here, and then now you're going to be in your goals page. If you have students who are taking only reading, you can look at reading. If you have any students who are taking reading and or Espanol, you can click and see either of those goals there as well. They'll work the same for either assessment. So let me give you about 5 minutes just to go into your classroom, click into your goals, and at the very least get comfortable getting there, and hopefully more clicking into some of them and just taking a look at what's there. And if you have any questions, just feel free to drop those in chat. Looks like questions have been coming in, so thank you guys for that, and thank you to my team for helping out with that. All right, so we're back to recording. So if you edit goals, right? So if you go in here, whether you edit goals with these little gray bars, or you type new numbers in, or you go into the goals assistant and change your percentile rank to whatever you want it to be. You know, we changed ours to 65th percentile, and we calculated and saved those goals. If you ever decide, okay, I just want them to go back to the way they were, you can go into edit student goals, goals assistant, and then right down here is student defaults. And then just leave that as next month and calculate and save goals. And then I think because February is that weird month, we haven't assessed yet. But then it'll put, for the most part, all of them back to the way they were. Or actually, it's because I said this month. So now let's do this. And there we go, back to normal. So just make sure if you chose next month for your goals to start, or this month for them to start, if you want to go back to defaults, you need to choose the same thing. So now our goals are back to what they were originally. Now, if Andy logs in, his goals will be back to the way this looked here, okay? So that's the goals page. Is everybody feeling pretty good about that? Yeah, do you guys like that one? Cool. All right, so now that we're starting to set goals for our students, and we're watching whether our students are meeting those goals, surpassing them, or hopefully surpassing them, right? And we keep adjusting them up. Now we can start looking at tracking growth. And you guys have, you know, hopefully by now at least 2 January and February assessments. Maybe you've got a third one in December, perhaps, and maybe you're about to get your second one. So now we can start watching for growth and watching that for the rest of the school year and using that to kind of see a couple of different things. So now we're going to go into a different demo classroom that has much more data in it. So now we're going to go into a second grade classroom. And if anyone is on from one of the dual language schools using both reading and English, don't forget that when you click into your classroom tab, over here, you can always select or show multiple products, and you can add iStation Espanol to your classroom view as well. So now I can really quickly see, you know, English reading and Spanish reading, and I can see usage for each of the products as well over there. So remember, you can do that. So the next report we're going to look at, let's go back to our PowerPoint real quick, our agenda. We're going to look at skill growth by level, okay? So we're going to look at that skill growth by level report. So you guys use Clever. So one of the kind of, I guess, double-edged sword sides of Clever is that I think sometimes you end up with 4 or 5 classrooms, right? So do you guys, I'm sure some of you probably have 4 or 5 classrooms, okay? So because of that, it's actually easier for you to follow the same way that I have to use to get to this report. So when you're in your classroom, you'll actually want to scroll down, and under your related reports area, whether it's English or Spanish, and it doesn't really matter which of those you choose, but if you go to view additional reports, this will take you to the reports landing page, which is the same place if, excuse me, if you had just clicked on the report tab. But going the way that I just did from your classroom to view additional reports, that will filter this page for the classroom you came from, right? So if you have like 4 or 5 classrooms, maybe there's a couple of different classrooms in there because you have different sections. This will be easier just to maintain that class. So once you land here, under the products column, you'll go to ISIP reading. And then in this top row, you'll see skill growth by level. So we'll click there, and then we will run selected report. You will not have to do this because we're looking at demo data. I have to do this. You won't have to do that editing that I just did. But once you run it, you will just see this report pop up like you see here. Okay. If you have 2 or more data points, you will have these trend lines like you see right here. If you don't have your second data point yet, you'll have your first group of symbols over here, or under whichever month you started. And then once they take their second assessment, you'll start to see trend lines. Okay. Now, first, let me tell you a little bit about the trend lines because you'll see this on a couple of different reports. It might be blue on a report, and this one, it's going to be the general color of the level that it represents. Those trend lines are saying if the growth that has happened from point A to point B, if that same growth continues, this is where they will end up. Okay. So it's not trying to tell you this is where they should end up. It's saying if the amount of growth that has happened so far continues right at that same pace, then that's where they will end up. Okay. So in this report, we also take your students and we look at their first assessment, and whatever level they were on that first assessment, we group them with that little cohort for this report for the rest of the year. Okay. That's how you see growth, because you need those kids that are even growing out of that level to kind of pull that score up and help you show growth. So there's a couple of really neat things that I can do with this report, right? So as time goes on, we can see how each of my levels are growing, right? Here we've got level 5, level 4, level 3, level 2. This teacher was really lucky and didn't have any level 1 students, but if there were, you would see the red line for level 1 down here. So I can see how they're growing. Now, the way I like to use this report is I can look at where within my instructional programming I might need to make adjustments and where we are being successful. Okay. So your level 5 and level 4 kids, for sure, those are your students that should be responding to your on grade level of core instruction and the differentiation that you're doing. Okay. So if my level 4 and my level 5 kids, if they are growing, then I'm doing well with my core instruction because in that differentiation, because that's what they should be responding to. Okay. If my level 4 and 5, especially if they are kind of flatlining, right, then they're not seeing that growth from my core instruction. And I kind of want to start thinking about, all right, do I need to make any adjustments in my core instruction? Am I using it as effectively as I can? Kind of what's going on. And I know this is a really weird year, right? We've got some core instruction taking place virtually. Have you guys come back to school yet? Are you starting to? Not yet.
We have small tutoring groups coming back, and then March 1st, K2 will come back, March
Okay.
15th, grade 3-5.
Excellent. So I just found out that I have 2 nephews. They live in Bellingham. One of them is a 2nd grader and one's a 5th grader, I believe. That's their age of the grades. The 2nd grader went back to school like a week or so ago, and the 5th grader is like, I think this is the first time he's ever said he misses his brother, because he's home alone waiting for the 5th grade kids to go back. So it's kind of funny to hear that. And then my stepmom said he just always looks sad now because he can't go back to school. But anyways, so now I can see my level 4 and 5, are they responding to that core instruction, that differentiation we're doing during that core instruction? Level 3, that's kind of, those are your bubble kids, right? So they hopefully will be responding to those same things, but they might also need a little bit of that small group intervention. So just think about those bubble kids, because obviously we want them to grow. And if they're growing, then you're working well with them. If they're flatlining, right? So maybe you've been relying on core instruction and differentiation with your levels 3, 4, and 5 students. And I see level 4 and 5, they're growing pretty well. So they're responding to that core instruction and differentiation. Maybe my level 3 kids are flatlining a little bit more, right? So, okay, so the differentiation isn't working for them. Maybe we need to pull in a little bit more small group with those students too, just to kind of get them kind of kick-started back up into that growth pattern that we want to see, okay? So that's looking at my level 3, 4, 5, kind of that core instruction area, the differentiation that we're doing within that core instruction. Then when we get down to level 2 and level 1, that's where um, you're getting into that intervention time, right? So that small group tutoring, all your small group work. If my level 2 and level 1, if they're growing, right, and obviously we want them growing faster even than our green students because we need to close some gaps with them. So if they are showing growth, then what we're doing with our intervention time is being successful, right? Because that's probably where they're going to see the majority of their growth coming from. They're going to get some from that core instruction, but they're going to get a lot more growth from that intervention time that you're doing as well, right? So if they're growing, then our intervention time is working, okay? If they have flatlined or if they're falling off, then I want to take a look at how do we have our intervention group set up? How are we providing that instruction? What resources are we using? Are we using those resources as well as we could, right? Is there anything we could do different to make them better? Can we kind of readjust some of our groups? Maybe that will help out. So if these two are flatlining, then you want to start to think about what adjustments can we make within that intervention time, right? Does that sound good so far? I know I'm putting a lot in your brains right now. So that's a really good piece to use up here. When you scroll down in this report, you will now see all of your individual students. And again, right now we're in overall, right? So I can see their score, their level, their percentile rank right here. And this part is very similar to just the regular skill growth that we saw earlier. I think when we meet last meet, 27th, I think it was, where we were creating our small groups. And again, I can click on any of my student names and I can go in and see that individual students' growth, okay? So I can see overall growth and then any of the subtests they take up here. We've got a second grader. So we'll go over here to reading comprehension. We can see how our comprehension scores are growing. And if you scroll down, you'll see in chronological order, you'll see all of their scores for the year for that subtest or anything like that, okay? The neat thing about down here is if you see like a big drop off, oh, I wonder what happened on this January assessment. Probably not that they were sad being back in school from being off for winter break, but we can click on any of these little yellow dots and we can go into, there's that reading comprehension assessment. And now I can see how they were answering questions on that reading comprehension assessment, okay? So there's a lot of really neat things you can do with this report. This is skill growth details when you get to the individual student. And if we back out, we're back at skill growth by level, okay? So we're looking at overall right now. I can go up here to edit report. And then right here where you see the skills drop down, I can change to any of the subtests that I might want to look at, okay? So if I want to look at, say, vocabulary, I can select vocabulary, and then I need to set my grade here. Nope, because I was already in it. Cool. So now I can see in vocabulary, like I can see here, wow, this one just really dropped off for my level 5s. Hopefully I would have caught that, about right here, and then right again here, right? So I could have figured out what's going on way back in the past, good old demo data, right? Level 4, 3, 2, and 1, they're growing pretty good, or level 4, 3, and 2 are growing. Level 1, ever so slightly growing, not enough for me, right? I'm hoping that I would have caught this, way back in here in month 3 at the latest and started to figure out what's going on, okay? And then go down here and you can see their individual scores for that individual subtest as well as we go down, okay? And it looks like I bet we got a little into some kids not taking the assessment kind of towards the end of the year. And that's why you see some of that level 5 dropping off so much, because the data gets really weird if you're, 1 month is everybody, then another month is a few kids, and you kind of jump back and forth. So this is a good indication that we should make sure we test all of our kids every month. So does this look like a good report for you guys to use? All right. So I'm going to give you about 7 minutes this time. It's 5:23 on my clock. I'm in Mountain Time, so I'm a little bit ahead of you guys. But we'll do about 7 minutes. And again, let me show you how to get here first, because this one's a little bit, has an extra step or two in there. So I'm going to go to my classroom, scroll down, and in my classroom, I'm going to click into View Additional Reports. Okay. From there, under my Products column, I want to make sure I choose Assessment ISIP Reading. And then right over here in the top row, you will see Skill Growth by Level. And then I can scroll down and I can run Selected Report. Click that. For you, that report will just pop up like we've been looking at. Because I'm in demo data, I have to go and change the school year. But you won't have to do that. So then you'll be looking at your report for overall reading. You can see your little cohorts here, and then you can scroll down and see all of your individual students down below. And then don't forget, you can edit the report from once you've run it, and you can change to your different subtests right here under skills. And this will work the same for English or Spanish. All right, ready? So we'll give you about 7 minutes just to give you time to get in there and explore that skill growth by level report. I dropped kind of a breadcrumb trail, if you will, into the chat if you forget. All right. So how are you guys feeling about that report? Any questions about skill growth by level? Feeling pretty good about it? We remember how to get here next week when I'm not on the computer with you. Hopefully you'll have the recording, so you'll be able to go back and see. So those are really two really good growth or ways to track growth, and then to kind of help set goals for that growth going forward. I think these are kind of some good, nice to have reports. I don't think they're necessarily must have. I think the goals is really, really nice to have. And this one's just good for looking at kind of going back and seeing, okay, when we started out, where are we at now? And do we need to make any adjustments, right? So a very good, two very good, or one report and one page for you to use. So let's move on. Let's talk a little bit about the instruction. I think we've gotten a few questions in the last couple webinars, even I think via email. We've gotten a couple of questions maybe about some instruction stuff. So let's take a look at some instructional reporting. But before we do that, let me give you a real quick refresher just about how the instruction works. So our instruction is connected to the assessment. So whether it's the English or the Spanish, when your students took their first assessment, that is what places them into the instruction, right? So whenever that was, whether it was December, January, if you start up again next fall and it's September and that's the first time they take an assessment, that's when they get dropped into the instruction. So we have two assessments, both in English and in Spanish. We have the early reading for the English side and Lectura Temprana for the Spanish side. And then we have the advanced reading on the English side and Lectura Avanzada on the Spanish side. So this will be your pre-K through 3, and this will be 4 through 8 English, 4-5 in Spanish. So once they finish their assessment, they're going to drop into the cycles of instruction for their respective product, right? So for English, we've got 15 cycles of instruction that are kind of the elementary instruction. For Spanish, we've got 18 cycles of instruction. And correct me if I'm wrong, Chris, on any of the Spanish stuff, because I'm not as up
You're
with
correct.
it as a lot of you guys are.
You're correct.
Thank you. And then for the English side, we go a little bit further. We have the middle school curriculum. We have the Timeless Tales, which is a middle school bridge, Human Experience, and Next Level, which will be more of your middle school curriculum on the English side. So regardless of which of these assessments they come from, they can land pretty much anywhere in the instruction based on how they're scoring on that initial assessment. From there, once they're dropped in there, they will work through kind of organically through that instruction as they go. As they take more and more assessments, if they're really starting to score much higher on the assessments, they can skip over certain things that the assessment shows that they don't need. But they'll always kind of work through at a good pace, and it'll always be adapted to their level, right? You could have all of your students logged in working in the instruction, and you could see all of them in very different places because they're going to receive instruction on those skills, those reading skills that they need, right? So if I need more help with some of the lower reading skills with more like alphabetic decoding, phonemic awareness stuff, I'll be there. If I don't need help with that and I'm more needing help in comprehension, that's where I might be working, okay? So it's really nice, almost customized to what your students' needs are. So on the English side, there's a continuum to the curriculum here. We start with the emergent and the early transitional. That's kind of where those elementary cycles are going to be. They're really in that learning to read stage. Your younger students, but even some of your older students who need those skills, right? I've seen 5th grade students working in cycle 1 or cycle 3 because that's what they need, okay? I've seen 2nd or 3rd grade students, more 3rd grade students working up in cycle 12 because they're a much more advanced student, right? So it doesn't really matter what grade level you're in. We'll place you where you need to be. And then as they move up, they get into, usually it's around cycle 12, they start to kind of move out of that learning to read phase, and now they're more into the reading to learn phase, right? So now you're starting to get into more your 3rd graders, 4th and 5th graders from the elementary side will be kind of more in this intermediate area. And then as you move into middle school, they'll get into this progressing adolescent over here, right? Or if we have really advanced 4th and 5th graders, they can even work more into this progressing adolescent as well, right? So there's a lot of really great material in there. When you get, for the older kids, we've done a lot of updating on how things look. They have a lot more student choice when they get into the higher, kind of the middle school curriculum. So it's a lot more adult, and not necessarily adult, but more mature and more fun for those older students than kind of seeing some of the same things that the younger students will see. And then on the Spanish side, we follow a very similar continuum where they start off with just those more basic reading skills in Spanish, and as they move up, it gets more and more advanced. It's all going to be, so the Spanish is, remember, not just a translation of the English. It is all a fully authentic Spanish program. So for those students who are working on their Spanish reading skills, this is going to be like, this is how reading is taught in Spanish. They're going to get a lot of really good cultural influence from a lot of different Spanish speaking parts of the world. So that's really neat, because you have those students from different parts of the world, they're going to see kind of some of their heritage reflected in that as well, which I think just adds a lot to the interest level for those students as well, right? Because they're seeing things that they recognize from maybe before they moved to America, or just from their family culture at home that they're used to seeing. So I think that's going to be very good for those students as well. And then, so you'll get you'll get more of the syllable rooms in the Spanish. It's all culturally relevant, like you see here. And then as you go down, so we can see here the instruction for is Spanish is going to be pre-K through 5, English is going to be pre-K through 8. Okay, so it's a really good program. Again, it's not just that, it's not a translation. It is fully designed, developed, written in Spanish by our Spanish curriculum teams from the ground up. So I think it's really, really strong for those students who are working on their Spanish reading skills. So once they drop into the instruction, especially on the elementary side, they're going to get a lesson cycle very similar to what you would do in the classroom. When you get into the middle school curriculum for those older students, it's not quite as I don't want to say strict, but it's not quite as regimented as this. They have more choice over what they can do. They can do some more exploration and get some on-demand teaching if they need it, right? But especially for the elementary students, they'll go through a teach piece with the characters. From there, they'll move into a guided practice. Then they'll always do independent practice and isolation, and we'll always connect that back into a piece of text, right? And they just kind of cycle through this as they learn all of those different skills. So it's a really good, strong program. There's a lot of corrective feedback built into it. There's going to be some reteach opportunities in there as well. So it's a really strong, really fun program. I think the kids really enjoy it, especially in those younger grade levels. So we do have recommended usage times. These aren't like if you don't hit these, you're in trouble or anything like that, but these are just what we recommend for your students to work in the instruction. And this is going to be based off of research that we did, I think in the 1920 school year or 1819, one of those, couple school years ago. We did some research looking at student usage versus growth. And this, we kind of found this sweet spot that we have here of them in the program getting really good instruction from that, but also not taking up a lot of your instructional time, because we still know that you're the most important person in the classroom. So we want to make sure you still have that instructional time. So for your level 3, 4, 5 kids, basically all your kids who are colored in any of the shades of green, we just recommend 30 or more minutes per week, right? And then level 2 and level 3, your yellow and red students, we recommend just at least 40 minutes per week for those students. I'm usually a little flexible with this. I usually like to say, you know, if you go up to 60 minutes, I think that's a good amount of time for them to be in there and still not really take too much of your instructional time. I don't like to see students in there. Like I've seen schools where you see, you know, a few kids in there an hour a day or 30 minutes a day. And I think that gets to be too much. I think they can power through the program and really get into things that are truly too advanced for them, and it loses its effectiveness. And I think you'll eventually you'll get some burnout if you especially force kids to be in there that much. So just think about these times, 30 to 60 minutes a week is kind of a good solid range. If they go over that a little bit, no big deal, but I wouldn't worry about like 30 minutes a day or an hour a day or anything like that. I think if you stick to these times, it'll be really good. And then I also want to think about quality of time, right? So let me go back to this slide here. So as they're working through the instruction, there's little save points that happen along the way, okay? Kind of like a video game, right? You go through a mission in a video game, you get that little save point every once in a while. That way, when you restart the video game, maybe I'm the only nerdy video game person in here. I haven't played in a long time. But when you restart at that most recent save point, right? You don't go all the way back to the beginning of the mission. So this is going to be very much like this as well. Oh, it probably should be. Oh, thank you. Sorry, I just saw Rachel's comment about my labels there. Oh, yep, that's what you get when you change a slide from tiers to levels and do it really quickly. Thank you. Sorry. That's why I talk about colors a lot. So, but back to the save point. So as they work through, they pass little save points along the way, right? So that way, if they log out today, they come log back in tomorrow, then they'll just go back to that most recent save point instead of going all the way back to the beginning of the lesson, okay? Now, in the lower instructional cycles, those are all pretty close together. As you move higher and higher in the instructional cycles, those kind of all stretch apart a little bit more. Lessons are a little bit longer, right? They're more complex. So in those hot, like kinder, first grade, I think if they're in there 10, 15 minutes at a time, right? I think they'll be good. They'll pass those save points and they'll continue making progress. Second grade and up, I think if you're in there, for 20 minutes at a time at minimum, I think you're good. I just never want them to be in there for just a couple minutes at a time, because if they do that, they won't pass a save point. They'll just keep seeing the same thing over and over and over, right? And that's no fun for them, which makes them not enjoy it, things like that. So I think kinder and first, if you just shoot for a minimum of 10-minute sessions, I think you're good. If they can handle more, I think that's fine. Second grade and up, I would shoot for a minimum of 20-minute sessions, and just kind of work that into the week as you can work that in, right? And I'll fix that to say level 1 for the next presentation I do. Thank you so much for catching that. All right, so do you feel better about just how the instruction works? A little bit, hopefully. Okay. Now, let me show you in the app, because I think there can be some confusion in the app. Oops. So when your students log into the app, right, they're going to either work in their English reading or their Spanish. So if I go into English reading right here, I've got this first box on the left, it's green. If I need to take my assessment, so if I go like to Spanish, for example, I haven't taken my assessment yet, so that says iSip, right? Okay, so that tells me that I need to take my assessment. I click there, I drop into my assessment, I'm good to go. Once I finish, and I come back in here and I click into whichever one I want to go in, I want to focus on the activities button now, okay? You'll see activities and you'll see assignments right next to it. The assignments is going to be locked. You'll notice I can't click into it, nothing happens, right? And I think pretty soon that'll eventually be grayed out unless you go in and do the teacher assignments from the assignments page, which I don't want to get too much into right now. I really like to focus on the activities, because when they work in the instruction, that's going to generate a lot of really valuable and useful data for you, right? When you go in and create assignments, I think they can be helpful. They're really good for extra practice, but they've always been designed as that extra practice. So you never have to go in and do assignments. You're welcome to. You're just not going to get much data from this red assignments piece, okay? So have them go into activities. That will drop them into their instructional path, and they will go there as well. When they're logged in at home, thank you, Ms. Merrill. When they're logged in at home, they're going to see an iPractice button over here as well. That's just kind of another extra practice area for them as well. There's some valuable, I think, decently good stuff in there, but I think right now, for as early as we all are in our implementation of iStation, I think if we focus on activities, we'll be really good. But if you want to assign assignments, once you assign an assignment, it'll show up here, okay? And if you assign a Spanish assignment, it will show up here under the Spanish assignments as well, okay? So just wanted to clear up how that looks in the student app for your students as well. All right, so let's talk about that data that we get from the instruction, because that's one of my favorite things about iStation. I think the assessment is wonderful. I think it's fantastic, but I think the amount of detail you get from the data in the instruction can just be super, super powerful. So there's a couple of reports we're going to look at. If I go back here, let me go all the way back up to our agenda. So we're going to take a look at 2 instruction reports right now. So the first we'll look at is the progress report. That's a new one that we haven't talked about. And then we'll talk about how that links to the priority report, because these reports are, I think, really helpful to use to look at together, because they are linked to each other. So let's go take a look at that. So we go into our classroom. Remember, we like to keep you guys as possible. So you go into your classroom. If you scroll down, you're actually going to see the progress report in your classroom page. So you can just get there, boom, one click once you're in your classroom. Now I am in my progress report, okay? Depending on the grade level you teach, right? So if this is a second grade class, so most of or all of my kids are going to be in this kind of elementary area, cycle 0 through 15. If I have more advanced students in third grade, or I've got fourth and fifth grade kids, you may see extra tabs open up here at the top. You'll see a timeless tales through human experience, and you'll see a next level tab up here as well if you have any students in those areas. If not, you'll just see the one tab here. Up at the top, there's a legend. This legend will just show you what all the symbols on this report mean. So if I open the legend, I can see that there's the first one is this blue arrow. That means the student is established in that skill. They don't need that part of the instruction. Basically, they've skipped over it, right? If you see a blue arrow, they have skipped over, they haven't worked in that area, right? They skipped over it. You'll see down here in the bottom, this gray arrow tells you where they're currently working. And then you can see kind of their different symbols for satisfactory progress, kind of going on down to ongoing struggles. These down here are the same symbols you see on the priority report as well. That link for the legend will float down with you as you scroll, so it'll always be there if you need to see what that is. So let's go see if we can find a good student to look at. All right, let's take a look right here at Emilio. So, oops, let me go back up here. So across the top right here, you'll see there's pre-reading, and these are all your different cycles right up here at the top, all the way through 15. Then when you scroll down, you'll see each of your students listed out. You'll see the different kind of skills they work on, and then you'll see all your symbols. So let's go back down to Emilio. So I can see that based on his first assessment, Emilio skipped all the way up and started working in cycle 11. Okay, I don't like cycle 11. Let's go here. So Amaya, this isn't the best class. So Amaya, she skipped over. She only needed comprehension in cycle 8. So that's all she did in cycle 8. She didn't need phonics in cycle 8. She didn't need to worry about this. She just had to worry about comprehension. So she started there. Then she skipped over and went into cycle 11, right? So she's been working in the cycles. Her scores have really increased really well. So she didn't need what was in cycle 10. She worked through cycle 11. And then based on her next couple of assessments, she didn't need what was in cycle 12 either. And now she's working in cycle 13. Okay. So I can see where she was struggling in comprehension. Now, the neat thing is any of these symbols where it is a green check mark or any of the symbols for struggles, I can click on those, right? So it's cycle 9. I can click on that. And that's going to open up that cycle for Amaya. Okay, so here's Amaya. I have opened up that cycle of instruction so I can see the different skills that they would work on in that cycle. And here I can see with a little bit more detail, what she was struggling with. So she was struggling with read with meaning under comprehension, okay? In different cycles, you might see inferencing, cause and effect, plot details, whatever it might be, you'll be able to get that more detailed information right here. Okay, so I think this is a very good report for a couple of things. Seeing where my students are, right, and how they're working through the program. Then I can click into any student that I need to, clicking on any of their symbols, and get a little more detail on what they're struggling with. Does that sound good? Yeah? Okay. So now let's talk about how this report links to the priority report, because they do talk to each other in a way. So I can see that Amaya is struggling with comprehension, read with meaning in cycle 9. Okay, so remember that. Hopefully I will. So now if I go out to my classroom, and now I scroll down and click into my priority report, guess what I'm going to see on my priority report for Amaya? Okay. So remember, it was cycle 9. So if I scroll down, here's cycle 9, read with meaning. And I actually have 3 students who are struggling with that skill. Okay. So this is where you get into some of those one-off intervention groups right here. I've got 3 students who are struggling with this skill, click here. Now I'm down there, cycle 9, read with meaning. It looks like Amaya and Julio were struggling with it at the same time, okay? So the neat thing here though is right up here, I have a recommended teacher-directed lesson for that specific skill from cycle 9. So now I have a printable lesson that I can now download and use with that group of students on that specific skill, okay? So that's really neat because now we go from the assessment where it just says comprehension, I can get more detailed into, you know, a more specific comprehension skills. So let's see here, we've got like, here's summarization, here's main idea, here's cause and effect, all from those cycles of instruction, okay? So as they're working through those cycles of instruction, I think they're generating really valuable data for you guys from that instruction. That's going to be a little more specific than just, oh, they're struggling with comprehension from the assessment. Okay. So do these 2 reports look pretty good for you guys? Awesome. We've got about, let's do about 7 minutes again. I want to give you 7 minutes again, and I want you to go into your classroom. And I want you just to first click into your progress report. And you guys may not, you guys are pretty, you know, new to using the program. It takes them a while to generate priority alerts from the instruction. It takes them a little bit to generate some of these symbols on the progress report that they're struggling. You may see a bunch of kind of gray arrows because they're still working there, right? They have to get some of that work in there, but you may see some symbols. So let's do about 7 minutes. Go into progress report and just kind of look around. You can even click on any of these numbers up here. Like, so if I wanted to see cycle 11, there's cycle 11. Here are the skills within cycle 11. And I can see any of my kids who have worked through there, what might they be struggling with or what might they be successful with, okay? And that's the big difference between this and priority is that on this, I can even see my kids who are just working through it and doing well, okay? So once you've kind of explored that a little bit, then go back to your classroom and click into your priority report and see if you have any of these cycle alerts like you see right here, okay? And both of these reports work the same for English and Spanish. So if you have a dual language classroom that you want to look at, you want to look at their progress in the Spanish instruction, you can go and click in there as well and it will work the same. Sound good? All right, so let's do about 7 minutes. Then we will come back. Resume recording, there we go. So if you have that student that's saying, you know, I'm seeing the same thing over and over again, you can go into your classroom and then click into a student page. And then right down here in the middle, kind of towards the bottom, you'll see this link for session activity detail. If you click that, you can then go into, this one has a lot of assignments, but you can go into a session. Let me find a different student. This kid did a lot of assignments. Let's see what Manuel did. And they did a lot of assignments in this class. I'm not too pumped about that, but
Wow.
you'd be able to see over here, right? So like each of these different boxes is a different activity from that session they were signed in. So like if you're seeing, you know, a bunch of different boxes with different names in here, then you know they're continually working through their path. When they see this status incomplete, right? So I can see like he worked in here for a little bit, incomplete, that tells me he logged out. Then when he logged back in, went into assignments, and now we're right back in. See how these are the same? These two right here are the same. That's because he logged out midway through that, didn't cross a save point, logged out. When he logged back in, he went back to the beginning of that lesson, of that little piece of the lesson. Okay? When they're continually working through the program, you'll just see a nice steady clip of them working into different activities as they go. Okay. So that's where you can go to kind of check and see that, oh, you are seeing the same thing over and over again, or no, you're actually moving through different things. You might just be seeing the same book for a few different skills. Okay, sound good? So another question that I say that a lot. I need to quit saying sound good. I catch myself now. So another question that I saw just within the chat as we were going through was kind of referencing more the fluency. I'm going to assume it's oral reading fluency, because I think there was mention of listening to the recording. So the oral reading fluency, or ORF, that is that extra piece that your students can go in. They read 3 passages each month into the system. We record them, and then we will return an auto score for you for English grades 1 through 3, English grades 4, 5, and then Spanish K through 5. Those will all have to be manually scored at this point. This is the first year we've had those two, so we are calibrating the scoring system to all of those grade levels, and then in Spanish for all grade levels. It is a very high priority, so they are working on it. I've heard at least for 4, 5, at the very least, it should be sometime this spring, is what I was told from the project manager of that. I would assume that Spanish will be similar to that or not far behind. It just takes a while to collect a bunch of student data to calibrate that stuff. Anyways, that's boring. So the exciting part is, so your students will read the passages. They get those 3 passages each month, right? Some of you may have already been doing them. Some of you may not have started those yet. When your students log in, we pull the app up again. I'll kind of walk you through first the student process. I know we're kind of running. We're kind of getting up close to the end here. So when your students click into whichever assessment they're going to take, once they're in this area, instead of going to ISIT, they would go down here, and then you'll see ORF right here, the little microphone. It says ORF. You click that. It says you're going to launch an oral reading fluency in your web browser. Just say, yep, go there. That will open up the assessment website, log them in, and should drop them right here into their oral reading fluency. Okay. So then they would click start. A little I can't remember what their names are, Dakota, and I can't remember the little woman's name, but they will have one of the sound technicians will come out, welcome them. They will do a mic check just to make sure the microphone is working. And then once, if everything's good to go, they will drop in and read their 3 passages, right? So each oral reading fluency administration, right? So that once a month they do this, they get 3 passages during that time, right? They have a maximum of 90 seconds within that passage. Once, if they finish reading before the 90 seconds is up, there's a little done button they can press, and it will move them on to the next one. If it takes them longer than 90 seconds, it will just cut them off, and then they will move on to their next passage and continue until they finish their 3 passages. So once they finish reading their 3 passages, and I won't go through this whole process for you. Remember, you guys can log into your account, go up to your name, and click on Launch iStation app, and you can actually go do the oral reading fluency as well. Okay. I think kindergarten teachers should be able to do it. I'll have to find out for sure. So I know kindergarten students, and they need to score above a threshold for it to be available to them. So I think teacher accounts may be able to see it, but I don't know. I'll find out for you. So once they've finished reading, and it's not going to be as immediate as the rest of the assessment is, because it has to be, the system has to kind of score them. But once they're finished, you can go over here to the left in your classroom, and you'll see oral reading fluency right here. So if you click there, that will drop you. Oh, I need to go into Sonia's again. Sorry, our big demo data doesn't have oral reading fluency. So I go into oral reading fluency over here, and then I will see I can filter by product. Let me go back. Does January have any? November? Nope. There we go. So once they have finished reading and the scoring is done, you will see this page here with all of your students and their scoring, okay? So if you see the blue, that tells you that everything was scored no problem. Auto scored. If you see green, that tells you that it was scored manually here, and it will even tell you who scored it. If you see orange, that tells you that it was scored with low confidence, right? So that means the system didn't really have a lot of confidence in that score. Sometimes you will see, if you listen to it and the student is talking really quiet like this, and they're kind of whispering, right? So it just doesn't hear them. Or sometimes there's so much background noise that you really can't hear that student. So that's why you might see the orange right here. Regardless of the color you see, fourth and fifth grade, any of the grade levels that doesn't get auto scoring, you'll see kind of a hollowed out, I guess, blue that you see here. But you can go in, view details. That will take you kind of to the first step here. You can see the passage. You get some scoring information, date and time, words correct per minute, accuracy, or words correct per minute down here, sorry, accuracy right here. And then you can go in and view or edit that score, okay? So we don't mark any of the, errors and self-corrects or anything like that. So if you want that information, you would have to come in here and manually score it. Once you're in this page here, this is where that recording lives. So you can record, so you can listen to that student read, right? So you just hit play. As they read, if you click on something once, that counts as an error. Click on it again, it's a self-correct. A third click would just undo it, right? Because I made a mistake, I didn't mean to click that word, right? Once they finish, you would right click on the last word they read and mark your time. I'm gonna drop into, so I'm gonna duplicate this real quick and we'll go to iStation Users Guide. And I'm gonna drop in an article about oral reading fluency. So this article for oral reading fluency here will show you, you can click here to learn more about how students will get there. Remember, your students are using PowerPath, so you want to use these two right here. It shows you how teachers can get to the scoring area. And then if you need to manually score anything, this little accordion right here will show you how to manually score a passage, okay? So let me drop that link into chat so that everybody has that. So there you go, that should get you to that how-to guide. So that'll give you a lot more information just about how to do that. You can do on-demand assessments for oral reading fluency, but if you do many of them, you'll start to run into students getting repeated passages, right? If they just do once monthly, they'll never see a repeated passage. If you start getting into oral reading fluency, then they can start seeing, repeats of passages possibly. And it wouldn't be like 1 month, next month they see the exact same passages, right? Because they're going to be kind of randomly assigned. But like you could get, February read it, they could see it again in May possibly, right? So just be aware of that if you do the oral reading fluency. So that is really the app or the student or digital side, I guess you could say, of the oral reading fluency. We also have a lot of practice passages in the teacher resources area, right? So if I go home and I click teacher resources right here, I can actually just search ORF right here, ORF. And then that will show me, here's some norms, some ORF, ORF norms right here, this first one. But then you can see all these different passages, and this little green bubble shows you their Lexile level. Does anybody remember, anybody want to drop in chat? If you work for iStation, don't help out. Does anybody want to drop into chat if you remember where you guys can see Lexile levels of your students? Does anybody remember that? It's been a couple weeks. I wish I knew the Jeopardy tune really well or had a good voice. All right, which report? Which report? There's a report. It's no, Lissandra's helping you guys out. So there's a couple of different places, right? For individual students, Lysandra put in their SSHO, a student summary handout, right? So if you go into your classroom, click into a student, what am I in here? Oh, this song is okay. Click into a student page and then scroll down. You see student summary handout, whether it's for English or for Spanish. And that will give you a Lexile right here, okay? You can also go, and Lysandra put it into chat as well, if you go back to your classroom, and then if you go scroll down into your classroom summary, right here, you can see you have a Lexile level column for all of your students here. Ooh, so you see another one right there too, Lexile trend, that's a good one too. That takes a couple of extra clicks, so if you go into your classroom, scroll down, go to view additional reports, and then assessment reading, and then scroll all the way down. You'll see Lexile trend right here for your class, and then run that report, and you'll see Lexile trend for the whole class here. And then if you scroll down, you will see Lexiles going across for each of your students. Okay, so a few different places you can see that Lexile level, but let's go into teacher resources again. But so now you can kind of use that to help figure out which passage you want to give them. Now these are the printable passages, right? So these are not going to be app-based or digital. So you wouldn't be able to record them doing this, but you would just click into this. It's going to be a PDF. You can then full screen there. So you can print this off, have them read it in person, or you can email share this as PDF with whichever platform you guys are working with. So that's kind of the old school paper option there for you as far as the oral reading fluency goes. Does that help out with, especially with that question we had earlier? Cool. Good deal. Oh, looks like you can have students record using Cami and submit that to, I assume, Google Classroom is GC. Sweet. So yeah, so you can have them record it. It's just not app-based and kind of going to be there for you. So hopefully that helps you guys out with the oral reading fluency. That link will hopefully help you guys out as well. As always, if you guys, it's 6:15 or 5:15 for you guys, I want to be respectful of your time. It looks like Aaron just dropped the timesheet into chat, so make sure you guys go get your credit for being with us today. I will be on for a few more minutes if we need to answer any more questions. If not, I will give you guys back to Aaron so she can kind of tell you anything she needs to tell you.
All right, well, thank you. There is so much to learn. It's amazing. I'm just impressed with everything that iStation has to offer. So thank you again.
Good. I'm happy.
And teachers, I know we've had a few requests for, would there be an opportunity to do some maybe topic-based question answer. So that's definitely something we can work through with getting some feedback on topics, and then I can work with iStation to figure out the best way to do that. But yeah, I will, as soon as we get the recording for this, I will put it in our iStation Google Classroom so you can access it there. Anyone that wasn't able to attend this afternoon will also be able to access it there as well. So yeah, feel free to shoot any questions to me or to your IF. And if you'd like to find out more about how to have students record using Cami, your IF should be able to help you out with that. If not, feel free to email and we'll get you hooked up with somebody that can help you with that.
All right. Well, thank you guys so much for your time. And I want to thank my team that jumped on to help me out. Alicia was on earlier, Chris Dixon, Christine Fletcher, Lysandra Claro was on. Those are the people that I really recognize. There's 80 people on there, so it's hard to find. If I missed you, I apologize. But thank you to my team as well for helping answer those questions. You guys are awesome. And thank you guys so much for your time. If you have questions, I'll stay on for a little bit to answer those. If not, you guys have a wonderful evening.
Hey, Michael, I have a question.
Yes.
Thank you for, well, first of all, thank you for helping because I was the person you were emailing about my assessments not showing up.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, so they're all there now, thankfully.
Awesome. Yeah. Cool.
It was really confusing because I could go into the session activity and I could they finished it. And I was like,
yeah. There was some, I think there was just some weird glitch on our end from it got all the data got recorded and then there was just a hiccup going from there to the website. So we just got an email, I think this morning that it should all be there. So
yeah. But I do have a question. So
yes.
I actually I've assessed 3 times now, December, January, and February. And so my question is I don't have a lot of kids, but there are like 2 or 3 kids where their scores are like up and down. So I didn't know if it's because of the way, because obviously we're not assessing together. I assess on Google Meet so I could see their face.
Yeah.
But like one of my kids, she tested at the very beginning in December at a level 5, and then now she's at a level 2.
Oh wow.
And so yeah, so I was like, well, I wonder if it's because she rushed through. Like I can't, I can't see what they're doing.
Yeah.
But I have a couple of kids that kind of did that weird, like they started out really high and then they like I figured the drop from December to January because we tested right before break because I wanted to see what it looked like.
Yeah.
And then I figured with 2 weeks off, we tested back in January, there would have been kind of a little dip. But then February, I was like, oh, it should go back to normal. But I have one kid who went from, he had 3s in December and January, and then he was a 1 in February. Yeah. Does the test get harder, or could it just be the way they're taking the test, or?
There's kind of, I mean, it's I think it's a very case by case type thing, right? I would love if you're welcome to email me those kids' names and I'll take a look at them. Okay. So some of the things that I guess my first thing about, and this is kind of a general statement about looking at the data, is if you see little tiny dips in valleys and peaks and valleys in the data as they go, I think that's just kind of because data is noisy, right? It's kind of like the stock market. If you watch a stock price every hour, you're going to lose your mind, but you're really looking for that growth over time, right? So if you see like small little dips here and there, I don't think you need to get too concerned about that. When I go from like level 5 to level 2, that's a cliff that I dropped off of. I want to figure out what's going on. So I might click into that, the really low score. I think, with kids being virtual, that can play a part in it, right? I don't know what's going on at home, right?
Yeah.
They could have had help on that first one, which is why they scored really high. And then now they're like not getting help and they're scoring where they should be. Or the high could be where they actually are, but mom was, I'm gonna go take a shower while you do this, right? Just get your thing done. No one's monitoring me. I'm just gonna do whatever. I'm gonna rush through it or do whatever that might be. So kind of all those different things can contribute to it.
Okay.
If you send me some of those names, I'll take a look at what's going on and kind of see if we can figure out what might be happening in that case.
Okay. I have 2 students. I didn't think to look at like how long did they spend on the test. I could have gone back because that might have been an indicator too. But I was like, and she's a pretty good kid, so I don't know if.
Yeah, and you run into, I mean, I've seen, I've looked at a school where there was a huge drop off, and when we looked more at the data, it was like, the March assessment there. I think their spring break was like the first week of March or whatever it was. So they took a February assessment the last week of February, and they took their March assessment like the Tuesday they were back from spring break. And I'm like, well, that's probably a good indication right there of why the data might be weird, because you're kind of straddling a pretty big break. What I mean?
Yeah.
So it can, there's I think there's so many different options or so many different reasons it could be. It's kind of a case by case thing.
Okay, well, I'll send you those names just so you can look and
for
see.
Sure. Thank you.
See anything? I just thought one of them is a kid that probably rushed through, and the other one is he's a good kid, and I just don't know how.
And we can take a look at that for sure.
Perfect. Thank you,
Amy.
Yeah.
I had a kid do that too. And when I looked at his session activity detail, he must have left his computer because he timed out of every
Oh, no.
vocabulary question. So he got a 0 on all of those. So his
Yeah.
score is a lot lower. So like, you know, the kids don't think about like, oh, if I
Mhm.
for a second, I'm gonna
Yeah.
make all of these questions.
So for that
Take a
student,
look
you could
at
give them
too.
you could give that student an on-demand for vocabulary, and just have them do just that vocabulary subtest, and it would replace that score for you if you want to.
Thank you. That's really good.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's good to know. Yeah. Anyway, thank you. I will send you those names just in case
Okay.
you find something that I didn't when I was looking at.
Perfect. Yeah. And again, if you have just little tiny bumps and, little up and down a little bit each time, I think I wouldn't worry about that too much. I'm looking for that steady growth over time up and to the right.
Yeah, I figured, the one, dropping maybe a level or
Mm-hmm.
that doesn't seem like that's too big of a deal.
Yeah.
Unless it keeps happening as
Well,
you.
yeah. We'll
But
take a look at it.
okay, perfect. Thank you.
You're very welcome.
Thanks
All right,
again.
everybody's- Yep. Thank you guys so much. You guys have a wonderful evening.
You too. Take care.
Yep. Bye.